What happens when one of the most meticulous, deliberate filmmakers working today
Are the greats.
decides to just make a $175 million genre bomb? We're talking about Paul Thomas Anderson, the guy behind There Will Be Blood, the master.
You get one battle after another. I mean, this film, right out of the gate, announced itself as this massive, chaotic departure. It's a balls-to-the-wall action comedy that just shattered box office expectations. It became his highest-grossing film ever, but it really resists any easy category.
That contradiction is the key, right? And that's why you, our listener, are diving into this with us. It's a total cultural flashpoint. I mean, on one hand, you've got Leonardo DiCaprio playing a paranoid, stoned ex-revolutionary.
Right.
And he's running from Sean Penn, who delivered a performance so physically transformed, so unhinged, that sources are saying he's just unrecognizable.
It's cinematic whiplash.
Yeah.
And I think that's in the best possible sense. The sources we have, they describe it as part Big Lebowski, part Sicario, part screwball epic. So our mission today is to really get into these sources and understand how Anderson managed to fuse all these things together.
Into something that, well, works.
Exactly. We need to break down the audacity of the style, analyze these just astonishing performances, especially why DiCaprio's vulnerability is being called a career highlight.
Yeah.
And, ultimately figure out what makes this messy genius so revolutionary right now.
Okay, so let's set the stage. The plot is, it's a frantic blend of personal desperation and these huge political stakes.
It's a lot.
Yeah. DiCaprio's a guy named Bob. He's this washed-up former member of a 70s-style far-left cell called the French 75.
And you should think, weather underground levels of political fervor.
Right.
But just drenched in the paranoid, substance-fueled absurdity of something like Sheer and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Perfect description. So Bob is living completely off-grid. He's maintaining this very fragile, super paranoid existence with his daughter, Willa.
But his past is quite literally hunting him down.
In the form of Stephen Lockjaw, Sean Penn.
And Lockjaw is this sadistic military officer who's driven by this very specific, very personal vendetta against Bob's old flame, Perfidia.
And the motivation is, it's wild. She apparently sexually humiliated him years ago during some kind of revolutionary raid.
It's an insane motivation for a villain in a movie this big.
And the chaos just escalates from there because Willa goes missing. Bob is forced to shed all that paranoia and get his old crew back together.
Oh, what a crew. Benicio del Toro, Regina Hall, Tiana Taylor.
Yeah, to take on Lockjaw, who, to make it even more contemporary and satirical, has now partnered with this bizarre white nationalist militia.
The Christmas Adventurers. You can't make it up.
You can't.
And if you put this whole thing in the context of PTA's career, this shift is monumental.
Oh, absolutely.
You're seeing a filmmaker who is known for these deeply introspective, slow-burn character dramas suddenly just embracing the mechanics of a mainstream action film. This is his first true wide release.
His first real action movie.
And the sources all emphasize this. It's his first attempt at making something genuinely fun, even while he's wrestling with these incredibly heavy, politically charged themes. It feels like the ultimate statement of artistic liberation for him.
And that liberation is just, it's all over the aesthetics of the film. Sources are saying that early test screenings were comparing this thing to, it's a mad, 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 mad world.
Which is a 1963 slapstick road comedy.
Exactly. The whole movie is a fever dream.
And that's the highest compliment, really, when you think about the subject matter. I mean, you have former domestic terrorists breaking detained immigrants out of ICE facilities.
Yeah. And setting off strategic bombs.
Yeah, and that tension between the absurd setup and the very real political weight, that's the engine of the whole film.
Stylistically, it's just breathtaking. The sources confirm it was shot in VistaVision.
Which is this, vintage, large format, super high-resolution film process.
Yeah, you think of those glossy 1950s epics like the Ten Commandments. But PTA marries that beautiful format with IMAX sequences and this relentless, kinetic, handheld movement.
That's what's so fascinating, that contradiction you just pointed out. You get the majesty of VistaVision, everything's bathed in this gorgeous golden hour natural light.
Right.
But the camera itself is constantly shaking and running with the characters. It creates this paradox.
Right.
It's visually beautiful, but at the same time, it's constantly restless and unstable.
So every shot feels like a beautiful disaster happening in real time.
Exactly. It's signaling that this is an epic, but its heroes are fundamentally disorganized. They're out of control.
And then you layer the soundtrack on top of that, which is just musical anarchy.
Well, yeah.
Johnny Greenwood's score is doing so much work here. It's constantly shifting between, this high, almost unbearable tension.
Like a traditional thriller score.
Exactly. And then it'll just drop into these moments of playful, almost cartoonish mischief. It keeps the whole thing from getting too grim.
But the real genius, and this is what signals that liberated tone, are the needle drops.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about them.
You have a high-stakes car chase scored to Steely Dan's dirty work.
Which is immediately absurd. It just undercuts everything.
And then out of nowhere, a huge gunfight erupts. And what do we hear? Sheck Wes, Mo Bamba.
And don't forget, the Shirelles Soldier Boy, a doo-wop classic, just pops in for no conventional reason whatsoever.
It shouldn't work. I mean, conventionally, it's musical sacrilege. But that's the point. This chaos, this total lack of respect for the rules, it just mirrors the anarchy of the characters.
So the critics are right. It's his most accessible, his fastest paced.
And definitely his most audacious film to date. He's finally allowing himself to be this musically and visually untethered.
Let's connect that style to the performances, because that's where the movie really finds its anchor. The transformation of Sean Penn as Stephen Lockjaw that's what everyone was talking about first. The sources describe him as unrecognizable and freakishly ripped.
It is arguably his career-defining performance.
Yeah.
It is so magnetic and so disturbing at the same time.
Yeah.
He delivers something that's both terrifying and strangely tragic. And that comparison in the sources, a roided-up Colonel Kurtz with a limp and a twisted libido, is just incredible.
Makes it perfect.
It suggests a character whose external transformation, into this military machine, it only highlights his internal pathetic obsession. It's a performance that doesn't just generate Oscar buzz. It completely reinvents what we even expect from a villain.
And then there's DiCaprio.
Yes.
Who is playing so completely against the type that has defined his recent career. This is not the suave, in-control hero.
Not at all. Bob is described as frantic, paranoid, reefer-addled. He's a survivor, not a leader, and that vulnerability is everything.
And that's why people are saying this is one of his best performances.
It is, because DiCaprio is forced to strip away all that Hollywood gloss. Bob is messy. He's human. He is perpetually on the verge of a panic attack.
He has to portray genuine failure. He's the consequence of a revolution that didn't work.
And usually when we see DiCaprio in these big roles, he controls the situation. Here, he is just desperately trying to keep it together while the world falls apart around him. It makes him so much more relatable and just tragically flawed.
But the strength isn't just in the leads, right? It's the whole ensemble.
Absolutely. Del Toro, Hall, Taylor. And the sources make a really critical point about the intentionality of the casting.
Okay.
The majority of the revolutionary figures that Bob has to go back to and rely on, they're black women.
Which isn't just diverse casting for the sake of it.
Not at all. It's mirroring the reality of America's social revolutions, where marginalized groups so often become the practical backbone of a movement that, white male leaders might abandon or fail.
So if Bob is this paranoid, failing product of the past revolution...
These characters are the grounded, practical face of its continuation. They're the ones driving the film's core question, which is, what does it mean to be a revolutionary when you've already lost the big war? They're not fighting for some abstract ideal anymore. They are dealing with the messy present-day consequences that Bob tried to run away from.
And that gives a movie that's full of slapstick and absurdity this necessary weight.
That's essential.
Which brings us to where the conversation gets really interesting. The controversy. Because a film that grapples so directly with contemporary American politics, immigration, extremism on both sides, a militarized state, it's gonna ignite a debate.
Just tapping right into the current zeitgeist, which is so rare for a massive budget action film.
On one hand, you have this overwhelmingly positive consensus, 94% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, calling it an epic screwball adventure, teeming with awe-inspiring action set pieces that PTA's most entertaining film yet.
I mean, that's incredibly high praise for a film with the Steely Dan shootout.
Yeah.
But the backlash is also pretty significant. Some critics felt the political extremes were less like storytelling and more like ideological instruction. They argue that it makes Hollywood seem out of touch with most Americans.
And that raises the fundamental question about PTA's intent. Is he preaching here?
Well,
The consensus from the more in-depth analyses is no. He's grappling, not preaching. The film isn't a call to action. It's an exploration of what they call revolutionary impotence.
Okay, what does that mean?
It's about what happens when characters realize they are powerless to achieve those huge, sweeping visions they once had. They have to accept failure and just live with the smaller, localized consequences of what they started.
But if he is just grappling, how effectively is he threading that needle? I mean, if a big chunk of the audience feels like they're being lectured to, doesn't that undermine the message?
Well, it certainly makes the film messy, and I think that's deliberate. PTA refuses to give you the easy catharsis that you get in a normal action movie.
The whole thing is meant to be morally frustrating.
Exactly. And the ending reinforces that. That final letter from Perfidia to her daughter, Willa, it places all the hope in the next generation. It stresses that the future requires new, nonviolent solutions, totally different from the bloodshed that defined her past.
So it provides no easy out, it just sort of hands the problem off to the viewer.
And that complexity is precisely why it's sparking such intense conversation. And it's why it resonated so deeply with the people who appreciated that thematic weight hiding under the chaotic shell. It forces you to consider the tangible cost of revolution and failure instead of just celebrating the fight.
So bringing this all together, after all the chaos, the genius, the controversy, is One Battle After Another Paul Thomas Anderson's best film? I mean, you've got There Will Be Blood, the master.
No, I don't think it's his best.
Okay.
It doesn't have the thematic precision of his earlier work, and it actively embraces being messy. But I don't think we should judge it by those standards. Its success is defined by something much more important in today's cinematic climate.
Which is its revolutionary nature.
Exactly. It's revolutionary because it dares to be dumb and brilliant in the same breath. In an era that is just dominated by prequel announcements and risk-averse, market-tested franchises,
Right.
this is an unapologetically original, messy, complex idea that also achieved massive commercial success. Over $200 million worldwide, PTA's first #1 opening weekend.
That commercial success is kind of the ultimate proof, isn't it? That audiences are hungry for something unexpected.
Even if it's wrapped in political satire and kinetic chaos.
And even if it's from a director who usually works in the art house space.
And you have to remember, Paul Thomas Anderson is a guy who taught himself filmmaking. He dropped out of film school after 2 days because he thought the structure was stifling.
He made his career by breaking every rule he could find.
And this film, on a $175 million budget, is that rebellious, risky spirit embodied. It's his most liberated work. Even if it's not his most polished, it gives you a glimpse of a major director just completely unburdened by expectation.
So the film's power for you, our listener, really lies in that chaotic blend of absurdity and profound political weight. And it's all anchored by those phenomenal career-defining performances from Penn and S, especially from DiCaprio, who showed us this desperately vulnerable side we just don't get to see from him very often.
And that leads to our final provocative thought for you to mull over. Given that PTA taught himself filmmaking by breaking the rules, and that this is his most liberated film, what is the most radical action an artist can take today?
Is it delivering clear ideological instruction?
Or is it simply being uncompromisingly themselves, embracing the messiness and the chaos, regardless of what the cultural reaction might be?
Go see it and consider the cost of chaos. We hope this deep dive helps you navigate the conversation.